I think someone snuck into my room last night again. The dust motes danced in the weak morning sun, painting shifting patterns on the far wall. It was always the dust motes that gave me away. That and the knot in my stomach, a cold, tight fist clenching around my insides. I hadn't slept well. Scratch that, I hadn't slept at all. Not really. Just that half-conscious, twitching limbo where the nightmares bleed into reality, where the creaks of the old building become footsteps, and the shadows lengthen into menacing figures. It wasn't just the lack of sleep. It was the feeling of being watched, of being invaded. I got out of bed, the floorboards groaning under my weight. My small apartment was hardly luxurious, but it was mine, or at least it was supposed to be. A one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. The kind of place you rent when you're trying to rebuild your life after everything. I made a beeline for the window, pushing aside the cheap floral curtains. The street below was quiet, save for the rumble of an early morning garbage truck. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just the usual collection of brownstones, their facades crumbling under years of neglect, and the occasional stray cat darting across the sidewalk. But the feeling persisted, a prickly unease that crawled beneath my skin. I started my routine, each movement stiff and deliberate. Coffee black, no sugar. Toast dry. Shower hot. As if I could wash away the lingering fear. As I dressed, I noticed it. A book lying open on my desk. It wasn't just open, it was face down, the spine cracked at an unnatural angle. It was a first edition of Dracula, a gift from my father. He had always loved classic horror, and it was one of the few things I had left of him. I remembered placing it carefully on the shelf last night before I went to bed. Now it was lying open, desecrated. My breath hitched. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Little things mostly, a picture frame slightly askew, a drawer left ajar, the faint scent of cologne that I didn't recognize. At first I dismissed them, chalked them up to stress, to exhaustion, but they were becoming more frequent, more deliberate. Last week it had been my underwear drawer slightly open. I hadn't said anything. The shame of it, the sheer violation, had kept me silent. But this was different. This was personal. I called Mark, my older brother. He lived in Chicago, a world away from my anxieties. "Hey," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I think it happened again." "What happened again, Sarah?" He sounded tired, already at work. "Someone was in my apartment last night. I know it. Sarah, we talked about this. Are you taking your medication?" "Yes, Mark, I'm taking my medication, but this isn't in my head." The book, my Dracula book, it was on the floor, open. It wasn't like that last night. There was a pause. I could hear the clatter of keyboards in the background. "Okay," he said finally, his voice softening. "Okay, listen, don't panic. Have you called the police?" "I know. They'll just think I'm crazy like last time." "Sarah, you have to report this. This isn't right." "I'm going to call them for you, okay? I'll call them and then I'll call you back." He hung up. I felt a little calmer, but the knot in my stomach remained. I decided to call Dr. Sharma, my therapist. She had been helping me cope since the incident. The home invasion, the one where my parents had been hurt, the one that had left me with a permanent case of hypervigilance. Her receptionist put me through immediately. "Sarah, what's wrong?" Dr. Sharma's voice was calm, reassuring. I told her about the book, about the feeling of being watched. "Sarah, these feelings are understandable, given your history," she said gently. "We've talked about grounding techniques. Have you tried any of those?" "Yes," I said, frustrated, "but they're not working." "This isn't just anxiety, Dr. Sharma. This is real. I understand your fear, Sarah. But it's important to consider the possibility that your anxiety is exacerbating these feelings. Perhaps we can explore some cognitive behavioral techniques to help you challenge these negative thoughts." I knew what she was getting at. She thought I was imagining things, that my trauma was distorting my perception of reality. "Okay," I said, defeated. "Okay, I'll try, but if something happens, Sarah, we're here for you. Just remember to breathe and to try and stay present." The call ended. I felt more alone than ever. Mark called back an hour later. He'd spoken to the police. They said they'd send someone over to take a report. Detective Miller arrived around noon. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a weary expression. He wore a rumpled suit and carried a notebook that looked like it had seen better days. He listened patiently as I recounted the events of the past few weeks, the incidents escalating in intensity. He asked questions, took notes, but his expression remained unchanged. Skeptical. "So, Ms. Walker," he said finally, closing his notebook. "You're saying someone has been entering your apartment without your permission, but there's no sign of forced entry." "That's right. And nothing has been stolen?" "No, just things moved around, a feeling of being watched." He sighed. I could practically see the words forming in his mind: delusional, attention-seeking. "Ms. Walker, I understand you've been through a difficult experience, but it's possible that you're misinterpreting things. Stress, anxiety can play tricks on your mind. I know what I saw, detective. I know what I felt." "Okay, we'll take a look around. But frankly, Ms. Walker, unless we find some concrete evidence, there's not much we can do." He and a younger officer, clearly a trainee, searched the apartment. They checked the windows, the locks, the fire escape. They found nothing. "Everything seems secure, Ms. Walker," Detective Miller said. I'd suggest maybe getting a security system or perhaps a dog. He handed me his card. If anything else happens, give us a call. They left. I slammed the door shut, feeling a surge of anger and frustration. They didn't believe me. No one did. I decided to take matters into my own hands. I spent the afternoon researching security systems. I bought motion detectors, window alarms, and a high-definition camera with night vision. I spent hours setting them up, carefully positioning them to cover every possible entry point. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the building, every rustle of leaves outside my window sent my heart racing. I watched the security camera footage on my laptop, my eyes glued to the screen. Nothing. The next day, I told Mrs. Henderson, my elderly neighbor, about what had been happening. She lived across the hall and had been in the building for over 50 years. She listened with a sympathetic expression, her eyes twinkling with morbid curiosity. "Oh dear," she said, shaking her head. "This building, it has a history. There was that break-in back in '78. The woman was never the same after that. And then there was that incident downstairs in apartment 1B. Terrible business that was, terrible." I pressed her for details, but she clammed up. "Best not to dwell on such things, dear," she said, patting my hand. "Just be careful and keep your doors locked." Her words only amplified my fear. A few days later, I started receiving phone calls, late at night. Silent calls. I'd answer the phone and there would be nothing but static or heavy breathing. Once I thought I heard a whisper, a distorted voice saying my name. I blocked the number, but the calls kept coming from different numbers, all unlisted. I told Detective Miller about the calls, but he was dismissive. "Could be a prank call, Ms. Walker, happens all the time." I felt like I was losing my mind. I started questioning everything. My memory, my sanity. Was I imagining things? Was I projecting my fears onto innocent events? One evening, I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My blood ran cold. I crept inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The apartment was dark, silent. I flipped on the light switch. Everything seemed normal, except for one thing, a photograph. It was a picture of me, a picture taken through my bedroom window, a picture taken while I was sleeping. I screamed. I ran out of the apartment, screaming for help. Mrs. Henderson came running out of her apartment, her eyes wide with alarm. "What is it, dear? What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed to my open door. Mrs. Henderson peered inside, then turned back to me. Her expression confused. "I don't see anything, dear. Are you sure you're all right?" I didn't wait for an answer. I ran downstairs out of the building and into the street. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away. I ended up at a diner, a brightly lit oasis in the darkness. I sat in a booth, trembling, and ordered a coffee. As I sat there, staring into the swirling depths of the coffee, I saw him across the street, standing in the shadows, a figure, watching me. I couldn't see his face, but I knew it was him. I could feel it. I stood up, knocking over my coffee. I ran out of the diner, back into the street. He was gone. I ran back to my apartment building, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I burst through the front door and ran up the stairs, 2 at a time. I reached my apartment door and fumbled with the keys. I finally got the door open and stumbled inside. And then I saw him. He was standing in my living room, a tall, shadowy figure. His face was obscured by a mask. He held a knife in his hand. I screamed. He lunged at me. I don't remember much after that, just a blur of motion, of pain, of terror. I woke up in a hospital bed. My head was throbbing, my body ached. A nurse was sitting beside me, watching me with a concerned expression. "You're awake," she said, her voice soft. "You're safe now." I looked around the room. It was sterile, impersonal. "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "You were attacked in your apartment. The police found you unconscious. The man, the one who was in my apartment, he's gone. The police are investigating." Detective Miller came to see me the next day. He looked grim. "We found some evidence in your apartment, Ms. Walker," he said. "Footprints, fingerprints. We're running them through the system. Did you find him?" "Not yet, but we're working on it." He paused. "Ms. Walker, I owe you an apology. I didn't believe you at first, but it's clear now that someone was targeting you, and we're going to find them." They interviewed Mr. Davies, the landlord. He seemed genuinely shocked and concerned. He cooperated fully with the investigation. They questioned the delivery driver, the one I'd seen lingering outside my building. He had an alibi. Days turned into weeks. The police investigation continued, but there were no breakthroughs. I was discharged from the hospital and moved back in with Mark in Chicago. I tried to resume my life, but it was impossible. The fear was always there, lurking beneath the surface. I had nightmares every night. I jumped at every sound. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. One night, I woke up to a noise in my room, a creak. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding in my chest. The room was dark, silent. I reached for the lamp on my nightstand and switched it on, and then I saw it. A scent, a faint scent of cologne, a scent that I recognized, a scent that had been in my apartment, a scent that I would never forget. I looked around the room, my eyes darting from shadow to shadow, and then I saw it on my dresser, a book lying open, face down. My copy of Dracula. I can hear him breathing in the dark, even here.